My work is about connecting with people. It's about connecting with the people out on the streets, the people that I photograph. It's the connection that I form with them through the images, without ever really knowing them, but for a split second I capture something of what their life is, something of who that person is, and being able to take that away and examine that, and your mind fills in a lot of the blanks. You create this kind of life for that person, but it's also about creating a connection to the audience, to the people that I see myself eventually showing these photos to. It's about trying to show them something about what I perceive life to be through these images. I would hope that when people look at the work, they see the humanity in the images, that they're not lost in what I would call the photograph in front of them, that they aren't lost in composition or colour and tonality. And yes, all of these have been considered when putting the image together, to make them attractive images and to make them successful images. But I think the thing that I've really tried to nurture in these photos, the thing that I really want to put across, is this sense of what our reality is, the sense of humanity, the sense of a different worldview, this idea that we could take a moment to step back from our ordinary lives, to step away from our problems and our normal kind of frame of mind, and to think, no, I'm going to take a few moments here to look and to see and to enjoy what there is in front of me. I think it's an almost childlike thing to just sit and stare in wonder at something that you haven't seen before, and to just appreciate it. We're all of us human, and I think we only exist within ourselves. But to consider that, the person next to me is exactly the same. They only exist within themselves, and the person across the street only exists within themselves. And to see that person across the road and to look at them and to think, in this split second moment as they walk home, perhaps they're, beautifully lit, or they're ignoring something, what is it that's going through their head? What is it that's taking up their lives? This person represents this monumental narrative of everything that's come before them from the moment they were born up until this moment that I laid my eyes on them, and what they will go on to be. I think photography is a really interesting thing because of how it behaves with time. I'm able to take a picture of a person with my camera, and it will flash up on the screen. We're all aware of this, but I'm sort of talking through it. It will flash up on the screen, this captured second, but then that will go away, and I will once again be looking at them within the greater narrative of time, within the narrative of their life, of them kind of walking away or walking out of shot. And I'm constantly aware of that. You see someone walking down the street, and perhaps they're walking towards, they're walking into the right composition, and you wait until they're in the perfect spot, and then you take the picture, and then they keep going. The process of installing a piece of work is quite an interesting one, particularly one as important as the degree show. I currently, as I'm recording this, we're about halfway through the first week. It's Thursday, and of course we go on until Sunday. And it's finally switched over from, repainting the room. Today's kind of the first day of setup. And I think it finally hit me this morning when I brought all of my work into the room. And you see it there laid out before you on the floor in these blank, kind of apprehensive walls in front of you, waiting for, the weight of the work to be put upon them. And suddenly you think, I've spent however many weeks up until now planning out exactly how I want this to be, and I've got all my photos printed and all the work's ready to go up, but where do you start? You know, what's the first photo that goes up? Particularly with work like mine, where I've attempted to make it as flexible as I could. I've attempted to make it as curatorially aimed as possible, and by that I mean I didn't plan out before the work exactly where each image would go upon the wall. I wanted that to be something that was informed by the space itself, by the weeks ahead. But it's a tricky thing to know where to begin with photos. I believed it before I came in that I would start with the largest images, but of course the largest prints are always the ones that give you the most grief, so I've ended up starting with the smallest photos, starting with the ones that are in series, placing them next to each other, and growing outward from there. And then I will grow higher, go further up the wall, take over that space, come back down, place the larger prints, consider freestanding objects. Although, now that I consider it, that room currently has a lot of freestanding work, and perhaps were I to add to that noise, something of my work could be lost amongst that. So I'll have to consider freestanding quite carefully. It'll depend on the monitors nearby, I think. My work this year, I think, has been influenced by quite a few different artists. Obviously, Saul Leiter is one that I've mentioned again and again as being kind of a real driving force behind my initial use of photography and my initial kind of street photography attempts and things like that. His use of colour I particularly enjoyed, because when I first started out I felt that black and white was kind of an easy way to make a photograph look sort of official or look artistic. So his use of colour really kind of led the early days of my work. I would say after that, you had people like Alexei Titarenko in Russia. So we got Bruce Davidson again in New York, sort of his street photography on the trains, and how he used to talk about how back then, the subway was this really dangerous place to be at night in New York, and he because of that, he wanted to photograph it, but he went through kind of training to make sure that he was at a level where he would actually be able to do that. So these really kind of quite interesting photographic techniques that people would use. I would say that perhaps one of the most important influences on my work has strangely been kind of one of the most recent. I went to see a show by Wolfgang Tillmans, and a lot of the ideas that I had about the way I was going to display my work and the way that I have displayed my work kind of were present there. Sort of the way that he put his work up on the walls, not framing everything, kind of having it sort of scattershot, placing text on kind of trays, and all these different ways of displaying work and taking work and present it in this huge show at the Tate. And I think it flicked that final switch in my head that said, this is a way that you can go about presenting your work. This is something that's viable. My work is concerned with the world, with the way that we view what's around us, what influences our view of reality. The process itself of walking the streets with a camera tuned me in to my own surroundings. And I think that really shows in the piece. At least I hope that it does. I think that my work now is far stronger than it was a year ago, certainly than it was when I first started the course. And I'd say it's become far more refined within the last space of sort of 12 months. I've learned a lot about my work during the install, spending so much time day in, day out, considering the work, the images, all the texts that are included, and what they need to sort of be fully realised on the wall, what the work as a whole needs. And it's made me realise just how strong they are as a collective, how well they can express something that I've tried and failed to do with words so many times before. Thank you.